A method is a block of code which only runs when it is called. You can pass data known as parameters into method. Methods are used to perform certain actions and they are also known as functions. So why use method? Because we want to reuse code. Define the code once and use it many times. Let's see an example. In the main method, we call a method display address. In the display address, we have a system out print line, so we print 3 lines for the address. So the main is a method too, right? It executes automatically. So other methods are called as needed. So display address is called when it is needed inside the main. The method declaration provides information about method attributes such as visibility, return type, name, and arguments. It has 6 components that are known as a method header, as we have shown in this figure. First one is access specify. Access specify or modify is the access type of the method. It specifies the visibility of the method. Java provides 4 types of access specify. Public, the method is accessible by all classes. When we use public specify in our application. Private, when we use private access specify, the method is accessible only in the class in which it is defined. Protected, when we use protected access specify, the method is accessible within the same package or subclasses in a different package. Default, when we don't use any access specify in the method declaration, Java uses default access specify by default. It is visible only from the same package only. Then we have the return type. Return type is the data type that the method returns. It may have a primitive data type like an integer double, or we can also have an object collection, and we can also void, etc. If the method doesn't return anything, we use void keyword. The next one is the method name. It is a unique name that is used to define the name of a method. It must be corresponding to the functionality of the method. Suppose if we are creating a method for subtraction of 2 numbers, the method name must be subtraction. You cannot say addition, right? The method is invoked by its name. Parameter list. It is the list of parameters separated by a comma and enclosed in a pair of parentheses. It contains the data type and the variable name. If the method has no parameter, we left the parentheses blank. We always, hear method signature. So method signature means every method has a method signature. It is a part of the method declaration. It includes the method name and the parameter list. Then after the method header, we have the method body. It is a part of the method declaration. It contains all the action to be performed. It is enclosed within the pair of curly braces. In this example, we first see public static void main. So public here means the main method is visible and it can be used by all classes. And the static means these methods don't require an object to be created. We will see it later. Also, we have a second example, public static void display address. So for the main function, we must use public, while for display address, it's not required to use public. For the main function, we must have void return type. While for the display address, the void is not required. If we write in other way, we can also return a data from the display address. But for the main method, it must be void. So in your program, you always have public static void main. When you run an application, the first method to be executed must be named as main. So we always start execution in the main method. For the other method, you can just have a legal identifier. Then the method can also have a parameter list. Previously, the display address, there's a no parameter. In this example, calculate gross, we have double hours. Once we have defined a method, it should be called. The calling of a method in a program is simple. When we call or invoke a user-defined method, the program control transfer to the called method. In this example, in the main method, we have a calculate gross. Calculate gross method is called 3 times using 3 different arguments. Each time the method is called, the parameter hours receive a copy of the value that were passed. We can also pass multiple parameters to a method. So this is calculate gross, has 2 parameters. One is hours, the other one is rate. So maybe you will ask, is Java passed by reference or by value? So Java is always passed by value. Unlike C++, there is no such thing as a pass by reference in Java. The reason is a variable holds the bit that tell the Java virtual machine how to get the referenced object in memory. So when passing arguments to a method, we are not passing the reference variable, but a copy of the bits in the reference variable. So we are passing the value of the reference and not the reference itself and not the object. The value is actually copied and given to the method. So Java is always passed by value. Return statement. It calls a value to be sent from the called method back to the calling method. The return type can be any type used in Java, like a primitive types, double, float, integer, and the class types. If it's void, it returns nothing. Any method might call any number of other methods. The method acts like a black box. So we don't need to know how it works, just call and use the result. In this example, calculate net pay method, we call 2 other methods, calculate gross and calculate withholding methods. We introduced the methods, so let's take a look at a class. What is a class in Java? A class is a group of objects which have common properties. It's a template or blueprint from which objects are created. It's a logical entity. A class in Java can contain fields, methods, constructors, blocks, nested class, and interface. To create a class, we use the keyword class. Here, the public means the class is visible and usable to other classes. Class have the following methods, mutator methods, so we use a set method to change the field's value. Accessor method is to retrieve the value, usually start from a get method. Non-static method, so it belongs to object. To call the non-static method, we have to have an object name, dot, then non-static method name. Static method, which means that can be accessed without creating an object of the class. Private access for fields, so no other classes can access the field's value. So only methods of the same class are allowed to use private variables. It provides information hiding. This figure provides examples of how public, private, static, and a non-static class can be used by another class. The private method cannot be called from outside class, and the non-static method requires an object. This figure shows a test class that instantiates my class. We have a my class object equal new my class. So we instantiate an object from my class. Object dot public non-static method. It's valid because it's a public method and a non-static method. So non-static method must belong to an object. The second call, object dot public static method, is also valid. The public static method can be used from either from the object or from the class. So the third call, myClass.public static method. So here we don't have objects, but we use a class, myClass.public static method. So it's valid. While myClass.private static method is not valid. First of all, the private, it didn't have the access to the private method. Then myClass.public non-static method is not valid because non-static method must belong to object. We need to use the object of myClass. Then object.private static method. No, private we cannot access here. And the object private non-static method. No, we cannot use private. The object cannot access the private method. Then myClass.private non-static method. So it wrong on two counts. The first is a non-static. Non-static need to belong to object. My class is a class. It's not object. Second one, it's a private. So it's invalid. It's common to list all data fields first. Names and the data types can be seen before reading the method that use the data fields. In this example, we have a public class employee. In the class, first we have a private integer employee number. Then we have two public methods. The first one is a get method, which is an accessor method. It returns the employee number. The second method, the public void set employee number, that's a mutator method. So we set the private data employee number. So the private int in employee number can only be accessed by the method inside the class. Declaring a class doesn't create any actual objects. We need to instantiate an object by using the new keyword. So we can use, say, employee, some employee. Then we say some employee equal new employee in parentheses. Or we can say employee, some employee equal new employee. So the new employee parentheses, that's actually a constructor in Java. It's a special method that is used to initialize objects. The constructor is called when an object of class is created. It can be used to set initial values for object attributes. You can write your own constructor method. Java writes a constructor when you don't write one, so Java provides a one if you don't have one. The name of the constructor is always the same as the name of the class whose object is constructed. This is an example of a constructor for the employee class. A construct method must have the same name as its class it constructs. It cannot have a return type, so we don't see any return type. It must be public. If it's not public, we cannot instantiate an object. Constructors can also take parameters, which is used to initialize attributes. You can have multiple constructors with a different parameter list, or we say different signature for a class. After an object is instantiated, its method can be accessed using the object's name dot the method call. In this example, we first instantiate clerk. That's an object from employee class. So we can say clerk dot set employee number, and we pass the parameter. So use the object name dot the method, then parameter if needed. The meaning of an encapsulation is to make sure that the sensitive data is hidden from users. To achieve this, you must declare class variables or attributes as private and provide the public get and set method to access and update the value of a private variable. The classes that you create become data types. Programmers sometimes refer to classes as an abstract data type, or ADTS. An abstract data type is a type whose implementation is hidden and accessed through its public methods. A class that you create also can be called a program-defined data type. In other words, it is a type that is not built into language. A class is a composite type, that is, a class is composed from smaller parts. In this example, we can see first we have an employee, my employee. So when object is created, then we say my employee equal get employee data. Let's look at the method get employee data. It return employee type. So employee works same as an integer or double, right? It's a data type. Also in the display employee method, the employee is passed as a parameter. So the parameter type is employee. The class can work like a data type.